Obdulia Sanchez. In 2017, she made a series of bad decisions that led to her little sister's death. And she didn't stop there. Instead of calling for help, she went live on Instagram and filmed the gruesome incident for the entire world to see.
This is the last thing I wanted to happen, okay? All right? I don't care though, I'ma hold it down.
So why did she do it? And why does she always seem to get herself into trouble?
This is the mugshot of Obdulia Sanchez, released by Stockton Police today.
Let's explore the case of Obdulia Sanchez, the girl who Instagram live streamed her teen sister's death on a highway.
She knows she do something wrong because she knows. And that's what I feel. She feel bad by herself, kill her own sister.
Obdulia Sanchez had a pretty troubled childhood. At the age of 11, she was abused by someone close to her family who forced her to use and alcohol. Then when she was 13, she was abducted, tortured, and even trafficked for 2 years, where she was again forced to use narcotics and alcohol to cope. This would eventually lead her to becoming completely dependent on them. Then a few years later, she ended up in juvenile court for driving without a license and was placed in a rehabilitation program, where, according to her lawyer, she seemed to be flourishing and got her high school diploma. It seemed like she was eventually putting the broken pieces of her life together and was hopeful for the future. But then when she turned 18, she moved back in with her family in Stockton, California, and everything started falling apart and she relapsed. And this would lead to making a series of bad decisions that would not only ruin her life, but her family's life as well. Obdulia lived with her parents, Gloria and Nicandro Sanchez, and 3 siblings, Jacqueline, Evelyn, and Nicandro Jr. Jacqueline, who was 14 years old at the time, was described as a brave and smart girl with a bright future ahead of her. She had just finished 10th grade and had dreams of traveling the world and becoming a famous actor or singer.
She was nice. She cooked me food, breakfast in the morning.
Like many teenage girls, Jacqueline was always on social media, especially Instagram, which is where she met 14-year-old Manuela Seja. The two had a lot in common and they became fast friends before they started dating.
She was brave and she was smart, and honestly, I did see her successful in the future.
When this happened, Jacqueline was about to turn 15 and was preparing for her quinceañera party, which was to happen over the weekend. But sadly, she would not live long enough to see that day. On the Friday evening of July 21st, 2017, Obdulia and Jacqueline went to Fresno to pick up Manuela for the party. As they were driving back, Obdulia started live streaming on Instagram, and she can be seen driving her 2003 Buick while rapping along with the music in the car. In the back seat, Jacqueline and Manuela appeared to be having a good time, giggling and taking Instagram photos. Obdulia had gotten so distracted with what she was doing on Instagram that she forgot she was driving and took her hands off the steering wheel. Suddenly, the car started veering off the road as Obdulia tried to get back in the lane. It swerved to the other side of the roadway and crashed through a barbed wire fence. Everything happened in mere seconds, and you can hear the terrified screams of the girls, as well as crashing metal sounds of the car overturned into an open field. Unfortunately, Jacqueline and Manuela were not wearing seatbelts, and they were both thrown from the vehicle. The video then went silent. After what seems like an eternity, Obdulia's voice can be heard calling out her sister's name. "Jacqueline, please wake up." She then picks up the camera and does something totally unthinkable. She shows her Instagram followers the gory sight of her sister's lifeless body lying on the grass.
You killed my sister, okay? I know I'm going to jail for life, all right? I understand that. This is the last thing I wanted to happen, okay? All right? I don't care though, I'ma hold it down.
Instead of calling for help, she continues to record the gruesome sight while talking to the camera and saying that she knows she's going to jail for this. As thousands of people watch, she kneels next to her sister's dead body and can be heard saying, "I'm sorry, baby. I didn't mean to kill you, sweetie." One of those people who watched the gruesome live footage was a lady named Mary Hernandez, and she recorded it and posted it on Facebook. As you'd expect with such kind of videos, it went viral.
At first, we didn't even want to believe it was real. Like, we were like, oh no, that's makeup. They're just,
I don't know, it was just crazy. And then, so I recorded it and posted it mainly because, like, as someone who uses Snapchat, I see a lot of people driving with their, Snapchats and doing what she was doing. So to me, it was like an eye-opener.
Tragically, this is how the Sanchez family came to know that Jacqueline was dead. Their 12-year-old sister, Evelyn, was the one who first saw the gruesome video showing her sister's bloodied body.
And I was really confused because I didn't know what happened. And then she sent me the video on Instagram, and then I found out that she was dead.
She then had to shoulder the burden of telling her parents the devastating news.
Nos cuenta que algo había pasado grave porque dijo, chocaron. Entonces empezó a llorar y dije, no, pues murió una de ellas.
The parents then called the authorities and confirmed the tragic news. Jacqueline was dead. But then they received more shocking news. Their older daughter, Obdulia, has been arrested for what happened to Jacqueline. Needless to say, the Sanchez family was completely crushed. In just one single evening, they have not lost just one daughter, but two. While they were totally devastated about Jacqueline's death, they didn't want to believe that Obdulia was in any way responsible for what had happened, and they defended her fiercely, saying it was an accident.
And it's honestly not her fault because, the tire blew out, and it's not her fault. Like, there's nothing she could have done.
How hard to say, because I can explain how I feel. Because, I never think I'm going to get this kind of thing.
Manuela, who had sustained a major leg injury during the crash, also defended Obdulia, saying that she didn't blame her for anything that happened.
Honestly, I'm not mad at anybody. And I don't blame anybody. It's all affected by social media. That's what life is now, and it's gonna advance more and more. That's what it's all gonna be about.
But investigators had more than enough evidence to charge Obdulia with vehicular manslaughter while intoxicated, DUI, and child endangerment. During investigation, authorities had found more footage on Instagram showing Obdulia driving recklessly moments before the crash. At one point, she almost hit a minivan that was crossing right in front of her. And Jacqueline, who at the time was sitting in the front passenger seat, could be seen moving her hands dramatically and yelling, "You're going to kill me." And it seems that's exactly what she did.
The video is very disturbing, both to us, as people who do this for a living. It's very disturbing to us because the callous nature of her actions, both leading up to this tragedy and in the immediate aftermath.
Authorities suspected that Obdulia was driving under the influence, and later, her blood alcohol level was found to be above the legal limit. Also, there were traces of illegal substances found in her system.
Do you understand the charges?
A little bit.
Do you have the funds to hire your own attorney?
No, I don't.
I'm going to appoint the public defender.
Still, despite the evidence against her, she pleaded not guilty to the charges, with her lawyer arguing that although Obdulia had admitted in the video to killing her sister, it was unclear whether a crime had actually been committed. He claimed that Obdulia felt terrible about what had happened and that she was absolutely broken apart. He also talked about Obdulia's difficult childhood, saying that no one had the right to judge her because they had no idea about what she had been through.
I think that it's very unfortunate that so many people would rush to judge Ms. Sanchez in this case based on a few minutes of a video clip when she's a very young 18-year-old woman. They've never walked a single step in her shoes. They don't know how she's been a foster child. They don't know that she's been the victim of human trafficking.
Before the case went to trial, Obdulia changed her plea to no contest, saying in a phone interview with a reporter that she did not realize that the video made her look like a monster. She described her sister as her best friend and her mini-me.
She's 14. She's like my mini-me, like my best friend. She looked just like me. Anytime I look at her, it's like I'm looking at myself. It makes me really sad that she's gone.
She also tried to explain why she took the gruesome video, saying, "I made the video because I knew I had more than 5,000 followers. It was the only way my sister would get a decent burial. I would never expose my sister like that. I anticipated the public donating money because my family isn't rich." How messed up is that? The Sanchez family did set up a GoFundMe page to help raise funds for Jacqueline's funeral, and they were able to raise over $12,000. Still, Obdulia seemed to be completely oblivious of the suffering and pain that she caused her family, even saying, "I'm sorry for making that video. I look awful, but I accomplished my goal." She further tried to justify her actions, saying that driving while streaming was not something new.
We do it all the time. We do it all the time. Like, trust me, like, it's like a reflex. Like, I haven't crashed, you know?
It's shocking how she still doesn't understand that what she did was wrong, even after her sister died. She would go on to write a 4-page letter to a local media station, explaining her actions and talking about how she wanted to record an album about the dangers of texting and driving and dedicate it to her sister. She also talked about her dreams for the future, saying that she hoped to speak at high school about the dangers of drinking and driving, opening a boxing gym with her dad one day, and put up a statue in Stockton to pay tribute to Jacqueline. She also hoped to start her own clothing line. At the end of the letter, she wrote, "I know I deserve to do home. I wanted to visit Jacqueline's gravestone every day." During her sentencing hearing, Obdulia read an emotional letter expressing her remorse, saying that while she didn't want to go to prison, she deserved whatever punishment she would receive.
She didn't deserve to die the way she did, and it shouldn't have been me.
She also apologized to her parents, saying she was tired of hurting the people she loved. Despite her parents and defense lawyer requesting that she be given probation, Obdulia was sentenced to 6 years and 4 months in prison. But the story would not end there. Remember all those things she planned to do if given another chance? Well, it turns out that was all empty talk, because she was given another chance and released after only serving 2 years of her sentence. But instead of learning her lesson and trying to amend her ways, she was back in trouble again, barely a month into her release.
Stockton Police say they tried to pull her over this morning for driving with expired registration, but she took off, running 2 stop signs, a red light, and leading police on a chase. She drove off the road near the I-5 on-ramp at March Lane.
A male passenger jumped out and ran up onto the freeway.
Police say they found this loaded gun in the car.
So what she did here in Stockton this morning is alarming, because she was just released from prison, is on parole, and is already engaging in criminal activities.
Yeah, Obdulia was back to her old ways and was even engaging law enforcement officers in a dangerous car chase while still on parole. She didn't even wait for the public to forget her face before she was back in the headlines again. But she was not the same crying teen anymore. She now had her sister's name tattooed on her neck and had this cold and detached look that showed she didn't care anymore about her future.
That tells us that she didn't learn her lessons while she was in prison, and that she has no regard for the safety of other people on the roadway.
She was charged with driving with a revoked license, violating parole, and carrying a loaded firearm. But interestingly enough, even with this second run-in with the law, her dad was still there to support her and showed up at all of her hearings. He claimed that Obdulia had been diagnosed with bipolar and needed treatment instead of prison.
She needs help to treat her mental health.
What do you guys think about Obdulia's behavior? Let me know in the comment section, and be sure to like and subscribe for more.